I'm Madam Eva from Educare Tanzania, and I'm here, my dear student, to take you through a series of solving of revision questions in our good media of Educare Tanzania. And this revision questions is concerned with topics we learned here at our media, and you will have to take your time to explore more. You'll get some session, you will reach to some sessions involving different topics of different levels from Form 1 up to Form 4. Also, there are lots of solvings of NECTA questions as well as these revision questions concerning our topics. And these questions is from the book of Tanzania Institute of Education, TAI. And in our today's session, we will continue with the revision exercise number 4 on the topic of evolution, but we will continue with question number 20. As you can see here, how does the modern synthesis theory different from the Darwinism theory in explaining the occurrence of evolution? Ni kivipi modern synthesis theory inatofautiana na Darwin theory ambavyo wakati wana explain kuhusiana na evolution? So, tutaenda kuangalia na on differentiating tutatumia some key points ambazo zitatuongoza katika kutofautisha theory hizi mbili. We'll differentiate one theory after the another, but by using the guiding points. Tutaangalia na ndo njia rahisi ambayo itakusaidia wewe kudifferentiate vizuri na kupata marks zako zote. For instance, you can see here on the answer, the modern synthesis theory and Darwin's origin theory of evolution both aim to explain the process of evolution, but they differ significantly in their mechanisms and the breadth of evidence they incorporate. And here are the key distinctions. We are going to look on those key distinctions as the guiding points and their differences on it. As we can start with, the first one is mechanism of evolution. On mechanism of evolution, Darwin's theory, Darwin proposed natural selection as the primary mechanism of evolution, emphasizing that favorable traits increase an organism's chance of survival and reproduction, leading to gradual changes in populations over time. So, tunavyozungumzia mechanism of evolution, according to Darwin, yeye aliemploy the use of natural selection, ambako according to the Darwin alituambia kwamba favorable traits zilikuwa favored over time na zilikuwa capable of passing their traits to the next generation, meaning that those traits were successful in reproduction. But on the other side, tukimwangalia modern synthesis, the modern synthesis incorporates natural selection but also integrates genetics, emphasizing the role of genetic variation and mutations. It explains how traits are inherited through genes combining Mendelian genetics with Darwinian evolution. So, according to the modern synthesis, that theory incorporates the use of other forces like mutation and variation as well as natural selection, ambako ilikuwa inajaribu kutuonyesha the role of genetics in evolution by combining the genetic concepts with the Darwinian evolution. That is the first difference. And the second one is that genetic variation, in which Darwin's theory, while Darwin acknowledged the variation among individuals, he did not understand the genetic basis for this variation. Tukiangalia genetic variation, pia Darwin alizungumzia genetic variation. He talked much on the variation and how do this variation bring about evolution. But he never explored much on the cause of this variation, meaning that hakujihusisha na issues za genetics, because due to genetics processes, variation ndo inatokea. And also, tukiangalia modern synthesis, it emphasized the importance of genetic mutations and recombination as sources of variation, which are essential for natural selection act upon. Aliemphasize kwenye importance ya genetic mutation na recombination, kwamba genetic mutations zikitokea na recombination due to reproduction zinapelekea evolution kutoka generation moja kwenda generation nyingine. Also, another guiding point is population genetics. We can say Darwin's theory, Darwin focused on individual organisms and their adaptation. Darwin alifocus kwenye individual organism and their adaptation, that is genetic population genetics. But hakuconsider the influence of population kwenye evolution. Tukija kwenye modern synthesis theory, you can see it emphasizes population level changes and uses mathematical models to describe how allele frequencies change over time within populations, that is population genetics. So, modern synthesis theory ili consider population genetics kwa kuonyesha ni kivipi evolution inatokea katika population, na ali involve mathematical calculations kuonyesha alleles ni kivipi zina change kutoka generation moja na generation nyingine. And also, another point is speciation. You can see on speciation, Darwin's theory, Darwin discussed the speciation primarily in terms of geographical isolation and natural selection. Alielezea speciation in terms of geographical isolation as well as natural selection. That was the basis of speciation according to Darwin. But on modern synthesis, it elaborates on mechanisms of speciation, including genetic drift, gene flow, and reproductive isolation, providing a more comprehensive understanding of how new species arise. That's how the modern synthesis theory take a continuation from where Darwin ended. Alikoishia Darwin ndo ambako modern synthesis theory will take continuation. And number 5, we can see integration of other disciplines. Tunaenda kuangalia how Darwin integrates the use of other disciplines and how modern synthesis theory integrated the other disciplines. That makes the difference. Starting with Darwin's theory, primarily focused on observations from natural history and biology. Darwin alifocus on observation of natural history and biology. But modern synthesis integrates findings from genetics, paleontology, systematics, and ecology, leading to a more holistic understanding of evolution. Kwa hiyo, ukimwangalia modern synthesis theory, aliemploy the use of various fields, systematics, genetics, akatumia akacorporate the use of biology, historical evidences na kadhalika kuweza kutengeneza understandable view of evolution. Again, we can see the time scale. Darwin theory suggested that evolution occurs gradually over long periods. That is all about Darwin. Alisuggest kwamba evolution inaoccur gradual over long period, but tukija kwa modern synthesis alihusisha the use of punctuated equilibrium kwamba evolution inaoccur rapidly but with periods of stasis or stability. That is here, while still acknowledging gradualism, which is all about this of Darwinism. It also allows for punctuated equilibrium, periods of rapid change followed by stability, reflecting fossil evidence and patterns in the evolutionary record. That's what makes the difference between the Darwinist theory as well as the modern synthesis theory. After there, my dear student, because the question was set in the form of essay form, maybe you will provide the introduction, you will come to the main body, then you will have to conclude your question. Now you can see, you will conclude, as you can see here. While Darwin's theory laid to the groundwork for understanding evolution through natural selection, the modern synthesis builds upon this foundation by incorporating genetics and a broader array of scientific disciplines, providing a more comprehensive and nuanced explanation of evolutionary process. That is all about our question. And then tunaenda kuangalia the question number 21 apart from this question number 20. Tukiangalia swali namba namba 21, we can see explain why fossil records as evidence of organic evolution are usually incomplete. Kwa nini fossil records kama evidence of organic evolution usually zinakuwa ni incomplete? Why? That is the question. And my dear students, as you can see, this question also is structured in the form that it should be answered in essay form. And in that sense, you have to provide the introduction, the main body, as well as the conclusion, in which in the introduction you will have to define the key terminologies. On the main body, you will have to answer the question, and on the conclusion side, you will have to provide your own ideas. And here I'll provide you with only 6 points, which will enable to understand why fossil records are always incomplete as evidence of organic evolution. And now you can see fossil records are often considered incomplete for several reasons. The first one is fossilization process. When we talk about fossilization process, we mean that condition or phenomena of the organism to change into fossil. For instance, here you can see on fossilization process, you can see there is rare conditions. Fossilization is a rare event that requires specific conditions such as rapid burial and low oxygen levels which are not commonly met. Kwa hiyo ili tuweze kupata ile fossil lazima tufanye burial, tuzike yule organism, tumzike, then akose oxygen ili aoze. Akishaoza ndo tutabakiwa na zile fossils. Hizi conditions zimekuwa haziwi met. For instance, organism anaweza akafa hapo, akaachwa hapo hapo. For instance, tuseme labda in the parks, kwenye mbuga, labda simba kafa, hawezi kupatwa mtu wa kumbari, wa kumzika, na then aweze kukosa oxygen ili aoze, tubaki na zile hard parts of that animal. That is the first problem ambayo inaifanya the fossil records kuwa incomplete as an evidence of evolution. Again, we can see, apart from these rare conditions, also there is biological factors. You can see soft-bodied organisms are less likely to be fossilized compared to hard-bodied ones like bones and shells, leading to a bias in the fossil record. When we talk about biological factors, we mean that the appearance of that organism. As we know, the organism possess the fleshy part as well as hardy parts, but other organisms, they possess only the fleshy parts in such a manner that that's parts of the body they can decompose total and there will be no any fossil which will remain there. Kwa hiyo shida nyingine ni kwenye biological factor. Kama organism hana hardy parts, hana parts ambazo ni hardy enough kuweza ku remain kama fossils, kitakachotokea ni kwamba organism huyo hatutaweza kupata rekodi yake kwamba aliexist. That is all about fossilization process as the first reason for why fossil records remain incomplete as the cause of evolution. Another is erosion and geological activity. By considering natural processes, erosion, tectonic activity, and other geological processes can destroy or alter fossils before they are discovered. Pia kuna sababu ya erosion and geological activity kwa sababu you can never get the collection of all fossils in the world. So those fossils ambazo bado hazijawa discovered zinaweza zikawa distracted by erosion and other geological activities. Kwa hiyo zikawa distracted na zisipatikane kabisa. That's why bado fossil records remain incomplete as an evidence of evolution. Again, there is sedimentary layers. Fossils are often found in sedimentary rock layers, and not all layers are preserved or accessible. Tukizungumzia sedimentary layers, we are talking about rocks and other fossils zinakuwa laid on the sedimentary layers in a such manner that ni difficult kuweza kuaccess those sedimentary rocks zote kuobtain hizo fossils. Kwa hiyo bado fossil records itaendelea kubaki incomplete as the evidence of evolution. This is the second one, and the third one is sampling bias, from which here we look on the limited excavation, in which not all areas of the earth have been thoroughly excavated, leading to gaps in the fossil record. Tunapokuja kwenye sampling bias, meaning that sio areas zote around the world kwamba fossils zitakusanywa. Ni some areas we mean that the scientists will sample some areas from which watachukua fossils. And you can see when they do sampling, it means kwamba they will left some areas ambako kuna important fossils information. So when you come to these records, it means that they will remain incomplete time after time. Again, you can see focus on certain locations. Paleontologists may focus on specific regions known for fossil finds, neglecting other that may contain important fossils. That's what I stated. Kwamba wana focus kwenye eneo moja ambayo tunaita ni sampling bias ama sampling problems. Wana focus kwenye eneo moja ambao wanaamini kwamba they can find the fossils and left or neglected the other areas ambako pengine wangepata important fossil informations ambazo zingesaidia katika kuexplain in detail the process of evolution. That is the problem. Also, there is temporal gaps. For instance, the gaps caused by extinction events. Many species go extinct without leaving behind fossils, creating gaps in the evolutionary timeline. So, tunaangalia wale organism ambao wanapotea kwenye mazingira bila kuacha fossils zao. That is temporal gap. And this temporal gap itasababisha kukosa the clear evolutionary lineage ya how the species wali-evolve kutoka katika kipindi fulani kuja katika state fulani. Also, short-lived species that exist for only a brief period may not have left sufficient fossil to be recognized. Pia kuna species ambao wana survive kwa muda mfupi, kwa hiyo hawawezi wakaacha fossils za kutosha kuweza kuonyesha kwamba walikuwepo. And that ina create bias katika evolution na inakuwa ni incomplete evidence ya evolution. And now tukiangalia tano is all about interpretive challenges. For instance, fragmentary fossils. Many fossils are incomplete or fragmentary, making it difficult to determine their exact relationships and evolutionary significance. So, tunapozungumzia interpretive evidence challenges, interpretive challenges ni kwamba kuna fossils yes zinaweza zikapatikana zikatunzwa, but after a while zinaanza kuvunjika, some parts zinaanza kudegrade na kupotea. Kwa hiyo inakuwa ni vigumu mtu ambaye anakuja kusoma zile fossils kupata uhakika kwamba this organism ataendana na organism gani au atakuwa evolutionary related na organism gani. That is all about it. And you can see also morphological variability. Variations within species can complicate the identification of fossil and their classification. Yeah. Hizo fossils zinaweza zikawa zina vary morphological na ikaleta utata kwenye kudetermine the relation kati ya species moja na species nyingine. And finally, we are going to complete with the point number 6, which is environmental factors. First is habitat specificity. Fossils from certain environments like wetlands or forests are less likely to be preserved than those from more stable environments like desert or marine setting. Pia environmental factors, for instance, tukiangalia environment ambazo ni za unyevu muda wote. Fossils za pale ni vigumu kuwa preserved ukikompare na sehemu ambazo ni kavu au ni kame. kwa sababu at that wetlands those fossils zitaanza kulainika na kuharibika na kudecompose. That is all about the environmental factors. And then you will conclude your question by saying that these factors contributed to an incomplete fossil records, which poses challenges for understanding the full scope of organic evolution. Despite these limitations, the fossil record remains a crucial source of evidence for studying evolution history and the development of life on Earth. So, my dear students, you will conclude on whatever means you will want, and then by using ideas corresponding to the main body of your question. Up to here, my dear students, I would like to say thank you for following our